Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so honored to have you on the show. Welcome to Watch Us Thrive.
Thank you. And I'm honored to be here.
I know your story is very, very inspiring. I've heard bits and pieces of it, and I'm really excited to introduce you to my audience. So, for whoever is meeting you for the first time, please introduce yourself. Who is Elizabeth Correia?
Usually when I introduce myself, and I learned this from a teacher, there was a workshop that I was a part of, and he had everyone stand up and introduce themselves. And every single person that stood up did the norm, which would be your titles and your positions, whether you're divorced, a single mom, a married mom. And I never introducing myself that way because I was like, well, that doesn't really tell me who you are. Okay, you're a mom and you're a lawyer, you're a health coach. Well, no, like, who are you? I stood up and I said, my name is Elizabeth Correia. I am passionate. I am kind. I am courageous. I'm a victor. I happen to be a motivational speaker. I'm a coach. And then the teacher, he was like, I've never seen anyone do that. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's like my titles and positions and my marital status, it doesn't tell you who I am or what I am. So yeah, I just said it right there. I'm kind, I'm passionate, I'm courageous, I'm a giver, I'm a servant. At the end of the day, I'm extremely passionate about giving and serving and using my platform and my story to contribute to the healing of the world. That's my life mission, really, and my purpose here. So that's who I am.
I'm so here for everything that you said, and I really appreciate that answer because I've only had like a handful of guests start off with that way, like, I am light, I am healing, I am all of these adjectives that we tend to not express ourselves in that way. And I think it's beautiful to really get to know you on that deeper level. So I appreciate you starting off with that. Now, every single guest that comes on the show, I always start off with going back to childhood. Like we said before we started recording, I have heard bits and pieces of your story, and I know your upbringing was one that was pretty tumultuous and pretty traumatic. So I'm going to have you share with my audience, talk about what life was like for baby Elizabeth. Share some of the big moments that really were a part of that time of your life.
So baby Elizabeth, 4, 5, 6 years old, very sad, very confused and scared and hurt and angry. The anger part came out usually when I was at school. I was getting into a lot of fights, especially grade 3. I would say when I got to like 8, 9 years old. But at the same time, there was a lot of happiness and joy too. And that was on the streets, in the playground with my siblings, getting caught up in trouble and things we shouldn't have been doing as little kids. But I loved my friends and I loved my community, and the streets really was my safe place. At home, it was dark. It was painful. My father was extremely abusive towards my mother, physically, mentally, emotionally. They were both abusive towards us in every way, including sexually with my father. And that started as far back as I can remember, which is that 4 or 5 years old. And that went on for years. Elementary school was particularly difficult because I was wearing all these different masks. I had to have a mask for my teachers, a mask for my friends in the neighborhood, a mask for my neighbors, a mask for my cousins, for my aunts, for our friends, family friends. I was living a lie. At 10, my mom ended up leaving my dad and left us all with my dad, who, by the way, is blind. My father was born blind. I would say that's when it got really ugly and really tough. Children's Aid stepped in. By the time I was 13, I was removed from the home, put into foster care. And the first 6 months of living in care, I lived in like over 10, 12 homes. So I was either getting kicked out of them, running away, or I just wouldn't show up and I would just be homeless, sleeping on the streets or staircases or ride the train until I get kicked off. I actually met my boyfriend during that time. I met him at 14 in grade 9, and I stayed in that relationship. I stayed with him for about 5 years. I was pregnant at 16, gave birth at 17. That relationship was extremely abusive, physically, mentally, emotionally. Like I literally went from my dad to him. I believe that's why I chose him. He was a lot like my father. That went on for years. The abuse got worse actually after I gave birth. So it was constant pain and turmoil and abuse, some form of abuse, from baby to adolescence. Then when I was 21, my boyfriend was murdered in front of me, died in my arms. Although things got darker after, that was the pit that I had to go to desire some kind of change for myself, to make different decisions, to say, you know what, if I stay here, fast life, fast cars, fast money. I started selling drugs at 14. I did that right up until my early 20s. And it was just a dangerous world that I was living. By the time I was 22, I had been to like 22 funerals. Everybody around me was dying. I was born and raised in the projects. It was just dark, death, abuse, domestic violence, police, crime, guns, drug addicts, prostitutes. I was born into that. Baby Elizabeth was born into that world. And I quickly became a product of that. And although I have never, ever done drugs. Okay, I smoked weed a few times, but I'm talking drugs, like real drugs. And I knew that if I ever did the drugs, even once, I thought I would either die or maybe like it too much because of that pain that I was going through, right? Most people do it to avoid something. I believe that's what kept me alive. I just know it was one of the things that really kept me, because I have two best friends who are addicts today, and they were my childhood best friends, and they got into drugs. It destroyed our friendship and their life. That sent me into a pit after Jamal died, but that was where I started to search. I'm like, okay, like something's got to give, and this has got to change, because like I don't want to die here. This can't be my destiny. I got to break that generational curse and do something different. I was a mom, so I was like, my son's, he was about 5 at the time, so I knew I needed to do something different. So I knew this lady. She had a salon spa in the mall, and she used to do my nails. I used to go see her to do my nails. She was also a minister. So like I'm talking like prayers in the middle of a salon, like she's praying over people. People are falling out, talking in tongues. Like that salon was her ministry. Still is, by the way, still is. After Jamal died, she invited me to church. And that was the first time she had ever invited me. And I think it was just that time. It was just that time. And I was like, let me give this Jesus thing a try. Like I was kind of like, that was the start of my healing journey. And it took a long time. We're talking like 25 years of pain and darkness that I had to heal from. I went on that journey from my early 20s right into my early 30s. And during that time, that was also where I discovered my calling, my passion, my purpose.
I always say on my show that healing, it's super cliche, but people say healing is never linear, and it's an ongoing journey that's a lifetime, I believe. There's always next levels. There's always next levels of healing. There's always things that are going to happen. Life is always going to life, and circumstances are going to come. And I know there's also another huge moment in your adult life that you talk about very openly, where you had brain surgery. Can you share with my audience what that was about?
That was life shifting on a whole other level.
I'm sure. I mean, compared to what you went through.
Yes. Prior to that, I had never experienced the sickness or illness, right? So that was very different. Yeah, so I just woke up one morning and I was just seizuring back to back. Didn't even know what was happening, to be honest. I didn't even know what a seizure was or looked like. And to make a long story short, everything that went down that morning, I ended up in Emerge at the hospital just to see what was happening, what was going on, what were these things. I was jumping things that I was doing. They did some like CT scans and MRIs, and results came back, and the doctor comes in the room and says, look, we need to rush you over to Trillium Hospital. You've got a large brain tumor that needs to go. We need to get it out like right now, or you just won't make it. You won't be here in the next couple of hours.
And that was your first time ever hearing
I didn't know I
about
was
that?
a brain tumor.
Oh my God.
It was like I was watching a scene out of a movie. Like my sister dropped right on the floor. My family was there with me because we just couldn't figure out, like everybody was scared. And that was it. I had to hug everybody goodbye. And my family followed the ambulance. They rushed me over to another hospital. And I went in for emergency brain surgery. And I think the scariest part of that was not knowing whether the tumor was benign or cancerous. Because if it was cancer, I wouldn't be here today. That was very scary for me. But I also went under in faith. I was grounded in my foundation, which was God and in His Word. And I believe that there was a purpose why this was happening to me. I had a feeling that I would be okay, but there was, of course, I'm human at the end of the day. I had to sign my life away. And when you do that, they tell you the good and the bad. There's a 50% chance that you will make it, but there's a 50% chance that you won't. And if you do, there's a 75% chance that you may lose your memory or your motor skills or your speech. They were honest, and I went under. I woke up. I couldn't even open my eyes. I recognized the voices in the room, so I knew I didn't lose my memory. I could feel my toes. Within moments, I realized like everything was good. But then even in those moments, the first day, it's like, am I going to have a stroke after this? Is something going to happen? Like it could be the aftermath, I wasn't entertaining. I was just like, I'm good. And I got a huge blood transfusion, which saved my life. It almost lost me twice during the surgery. So hearing the surgeon repeat all these things, like how the operation went, and I'm there with my family. It was, he just kept saying, you're an angel. You've had this thing for a very long time. And I'm like, how long? It's like, well, we don't know. We're sending it off to get tested. So we'll see. And then 2 weeks later, I ended up finding out that I had it for more than 25 years. And they said I likely had this tumor since I was a little girl.
Wow. That just gave me like full body chills from head to toe. And that's why I always starting off with the dark and heaviness on my podcast, because a lot of the things that I do talk about on my show can be triggering for some. I'm a domestic violence survivor as well. So I always hold space for people who have gone through similar things that I've gone through, just to hear your story and then to see the woman that you have become today. It's like night and day. And I really want for my audience to meet people like you, to know that, like I said before, you've gone through some really heavy shit. And for you to have lived through it and have been able to turn it around into something that is helping and healing people, I think we need to have more of these type of conversations and to connect with more people like yourself, to show that, yes, it can be difficult. Yes, your circumstances can create chaos in your life, but it's really up to the person who's going through it, in my opinion, that you can either be a victim of the circumstances or, like you said, become a victor and show that there is change outside of the shit that happens to us. And I know that's something that you talk about a lot. So like you said, you're a transformational speaker, you're an author that I want to talk about too. You're a coach and you're a founder of your company, Correia Enterprise, which is a woman's platform for personal growth and lifestyle design. I'm like so here for it. When I saw that, I was like, yes, she is my vibe. And I know you're all about moving from pain to passion to purpose to profit. And I love those 4 P's. So I want to know, what was your why as to why you decided to turn everything that you've gone through into this platform of personal development and healing? Share what that journey looked like for my audience.
So I love the 4 P's because it was literally the journey that I went on. I discovered this passion through my pain. Beginning stages of my healing journey, I was involved in a lot of different programs and groups. So I was very involved with the youth ministry at church, with the women's ministry at church. I spent a lot of time volunteering for organizations, youth shelters, youth prisons, like for free. It was just something I loved. Never in a million years did I think that I was going to end up doing this for a living. I just did not think that was going to happen. And it did. I discovered my passion and my purpose through my pain. I always say I didn't go looking for this. I didn't go looking for this platform. It was something that literally happened while I was fighting through my pain. I was like, I really like this. I like being a part of these group sessions. I love sharing my story and seeing the impact that it was having on other young girls, on other youth, young women. Even though I wasn't where I wanted to be, I was far from where I was. So I was able to talk about that specific time in my life where I'm in church, I'm studying, I've gone back to school, I take a lot of courses, I'm always reading, always learning. That was so drastically different to the darkness I was living in prior to that season in my life. It was empowering to share that and to see what it would do, how it would literally restore hope. I can see it in their eyes. Like, if she did this, if you did it, I can do it. And I would tell them, if I did this, ooh, anybody can do this. There was no table for me. I had to set my own table, right? The Bible says God will prepare a table for you. That's what happened, literally. With my story, my background, there weren't people out there waiting to give me opportunities. I had to go to these schools. I had to go search for these opportunities. I had to make a way for myself. And I did it. And I was determined. I wrote a book. I'd never known anyone who written a book. I didn't even know what I was doing. But I knew that I had to write that book to create awareness around the effects of abuse, to share what happens to a young child, a girl, a boy, who grows up with that shame and that pain and that anger, and what that turns into their adulthood, what that gives birth to. And my life was a direct example of that. What happened in my life was because of that childhood pain. I didn't become an at-risk youth the first time I held a gun at 14. That was a direct result of what I had survived up until 14. So I discovered this passion for wanting to do this work, and I didn't know if I could get paid for it. I just loved doing it. And then I turned it into my purpose. I started charging a fee to speak. My first fee was $250. I copied Tony Robbins. I heard him on this speaking where it was his first time he ever charged somebody was $250. That's how it happened. And then I moved to pay.
All right. So I want to ask you before I move on to the next question. Say there's an aspiring entrepreneur who may have a similar upbringing that you had, and they want to start moving into the personal development growth space. They want to do what you do, but they're scared to show up, to share their story, to be vulnerable. Being vulnerable and authentic is very scary, especially for people who are entering this space for the first time. So what would be a piece of advice that you would give to my listeners in regards to owning your story and showing up? What would you say to them?
To do what I did, which was I first started sharing my story in small groups. So it was, if there was like a certain girls program happening, or they were open for registration, like Find Your Purpose 6-week program, or there's programs going on all over the world. So enroll into those programs, register for those programs, because that's going to be your practice ground. That's going to be like your playground. So you're going to get used to sharing your story in that small space. You have to practice sharing your story. Sharing your story is also a form of healing. You want to make sure you're healing, not completely healed, because no such thing. You're always growing, always healing, but you're healing before you get out there to speak for pay. You want to make sure that when you're speaking, you're not speaking from a broken place. You're speaking from a place of your healing. You don't have to be completely healed. You should be on that journey though. So practice in those small groups. Another thing that I did was I started hosting my own women's groups. And that's huge for practicing. I didn't even know it was going to turn into what it turned into. But going back, this is how it worked for me. This is how it happened for me. It was with ease. Like I was speaking in different schools 3-4 days a week. It was a lot of referral base. Because when you have a story of overcoming adversity, whatever that means for you, there's a world of people out there. Their healing is wrapped up in your story. There's people out there that need you. You have to just start practicing, because you don't want to start getting out there and all of a sudden you're in front of hundreds of people and you're triggered. You're not healed. You can't even get through your talk. Like, you don't want it to come through that way. People don't want to know what you've gone through until you can tell them how you came through. If you do it the other way around, it's going to sound like you're complaining, nagging, you're hurt. And then that to people, especially strangers, family is different. You can say whatever you want. They check out. They don't want to hear it. It's just how it is. So you want to make sure that you cannot just tell them what you went through, but how. Your audience is there to learn the how. How did you come through? How did you accomplish that? How did you get out of debt? How did you heal from that sickness? Whatever it was. So you want to make sure that you're able to do that. And you can practice doing that in groups, especially your own groups, hosting your own workshops, your own events. Small. It could be 5 women, 5 men.
Thank you for sharing that. I low-key, I'm asking for myself, because one of the goals that I have with my podcast and my brand that I'm trying to grow is I want to start doing speaking gigs. I want to start putting myself out there more, not just hiding behind a mic. I mean, I love my podcast. I think it's fucking awesome, but I want to grow. I want to evolve. I want to share my story. And I know that there's people out there who have gone through similar things that I've experienced. Like you said, I really think there is healing in sharing our stories. And I found in my own that when I started speaking up and when I started talking about what I went through, I started attracting the type of people that were like, oh my God, me too. That for me was so powerful, because when you're in those type of situations, and I'm speaking on my experience of being a domestic violence survivor, you can feel so alone when you're in it. And to speak up and to see that there's other people who have also gone through it, who are also looking for healing, that is powerful. And that is how change can happen in my eyes. So thank you for giving me the motivation to make that happen in 2023. I'm gonna do it. I'm putting it out there.
You are going to do it. Yes, you are, because that's your legacy at the end of the day. And if it's a thought, I always say, if you keep having this vision and this desire to do something, it is your responsibility to get it done, to do it. It was given to you for a reason. It's not like you're getting this idea and this desire to be a professional guitar player. Because if you were, I'd say go buy the guitar. Whatever it is, whatever is constantly on your mind, it's there. It gets worse. It intensifies every year. It's something you're supposed to do. I tell my clients this, when you first start building a speaking business, get clear with your one thing, your one message. Yes, you can probably talk about 5 different things, but you got to get clear with that one thing. And mine was abuse, surviving abuse, how to move from victim to survivor to victor. Because survivor and victor are very different. When you're in the survivor mode, you're just surviving. Now, what are you going to do with what you've overcome. Change, build a movement, talk about that one thing. So what's that one thing? Domestic violence. What about domestic violence? Like, did it cause you to doubt yourself? What was it, right? So have like that one thing. If your one thing to talk about could be self-love, self-acceptance, rediscovering yourself, finding yourself, hope, encouragement, like find that one thing.
Thank you for those nuggets. I hope anyone who's listening, y'all are taking notes because there's a lot of gems being dropped right now. Now, I want to focus this conversation around healing and transformation. And there's a few things that you really talk about a lot when you have your speaking gigs, and I'm sure working with your clients as well. So one of the first things that you talk about is awakening the 4 levels of personal transformation. And I want to know what that means to you. So talk about the 4 keys to unlock what you need to permanently transform your life so that you can become the creator of your own destiny.
The first one, I would say self-awareness, being aware of where you're at, of what's happening, what you need, your bad habits, what are they? How are you going to break those bad habits, reinforce new ones? Like really becoming aware of who you are, your truth. What's true right now? What is it? Are you in a toxic relationship? Accept that. Own it. Own your part. Be super present and aware of where you are, because the only way you can possibly move to the next level of change or healing transformation is accepting where you're at. If you don't, there was many years where I was ignoring what happened to me. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to own it. I didn't want it brought up in conversations, right? I shoved it under the rug. Become self-aware. Write it all out. Write out what's happening, your truth, how you're feeling and what's happening. The second is self-care for me. That was a big part of my healing. Self-care looks different for everyone. It could be having a prayer life. It could be meditation. It could be working out. It could be doing yoga. Walking is a form of self-care. It's not just the manicures and pedis. It's so much more than that. Self-care includes personal development. How you're working on yourself. Are you learning? Are you reading? Are you studying? That's all goes under self-care. I did that for years. That was a huge part of my healing before it even turned into the working out, which I do every day. The self-care part is huge. And then self-love, because self-worth comes after self-love. Self-love for me is really finding what works for you, set boundaries, standards, know your values, know who you are. The more you're in tune with yourself, the more you have to bring to the world, to your job, to your career, to your business, to the platform, to the stage. Self-love was another huge journey for me. It took years for me to get there. And all of the above, I continue to work on every day. I continue because there's no such thing as being whole and complete. Not even Oprah is whole and complete. And then was the self-worth part, really knowing my worth, knowing what I bring to the table. It's one thing to love yourself. It's another to ask for the promotion, to feel worthy enough to ask for the raise, to feel worthy enough to put your price out there. And it is what it is. That's it. That's my price. Yesterday's price is not today's price. Okay?
That's right, Fat Joe. That's right.
Those were the basic pillars and the things that I personally had to work very hard on. And I continue to, because things will happen in life. You go through breakups, you go through bullshit in your business. There's so many things that life is constantly throwing at you. And if you're not grounded, if you don't have those basic principles, those pillars, you will be easily shaken and destroyed and maybe even killed mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And then, look at DJ Twitch, right? Physically.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And for me, I feel like that is the journey that I'm on right now. That lack of self-worth and in trust in myself was something that I have gone through probably my entire life. And later on in my 20s and early 30s, when I was finding these toxic type of relationships, I just knew that I didn't have that love for me that I was so desperately searching for in other people. And I think for me, being on my personal development journey since I left that abusive relationship in 2021 and really focusing on that healing and not using other people to distract me like I used to do, that is how I have been able to develop that self-worth, to know who I am on the inside. And I love that you say that it's a continuous journey, that you're still going through it. And it's never going to end. There's always going to be instances that are going to really trigger you from shit that you've gone through before. Being on this journey and being able to just do the work and be alone and really focus on that while I'm healing, that has been super transformational for me. So I think taking some of that time to really isolate yourself and look in the mirror and take accountability for the role that you have played, that has been huge for me. That was the word of the year for me in 2022. Like I always do a word of the year. Last year was accountability. You are the reason why some of this shit happened. And it's
Yes.
not until I accepted that, instead of always blaming everyone else and I'm the victim. No, you had something to do with why your life turned out the way that it turned out.
Yeah. I tend to tell my clients or my audience, strive to be 1% better each day. When you hear, give it your 100, are you kidding me? I know people that jump into the gym and they go 5 days a week. The following week, they're in so much pain, they throw in the towel. They're done. You can't go and bang it out, like give your 100, bang it, because it's not going to work that way. It's about, let me start off this week by going twice a week, especially for someone who's never worked out. I'll go Mondays and Wednesdays, for instance, right? You can say that if that's your plan. Okay, you keep doing Mondays and Wednesdays. Next thing you know, I'm going to add in Fridays. So it's about that 1%. It's like people, oh, I'm going to cut out carbs and sugar and sweets and chocolate and I'm done with it. Oh yeah, good luck. Let me know when you get to 3 weeks. Rather than saying, for this quarter or next 12 weeks, I'm going to cut out soda. Once you overcome that, then you can say, you know what? I eat a lot of bread. I'm done with bread. Or even the personal development part, like I'm going to start praying and this and that and reading and 50 different things. And it's like, no, how about you just pick up a book, read that book, say, you know what? I'm going to complete this book in 30 days. After that, you can add on something else, right? So it's about those small steps that create permanent transformation, not change. Change can be changed again. Permanent transformation.
Small actionable steps every single day. And I think that keeping your word to yourself and the things that you say that you're going to do, that builds up your confidence. The definition of confidence is honoring your word and promising to do whatever it is that you said that you're going to do. So like if you said that in 2023, I'm going to start a workout regimen and I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, go to the gym 3 times a week and honor what you're saying. And once you start doing that consistently, that's going to build up your confidence and that's going to build up the trust that you have within yourself. And then you're going to see how your life is going to start to transform, not change, like you said, but transform. And I think for me as well, like that has been building up my confidence, saying what I'm going to do and actually going through with it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It's an incredible feeling, the way it leaves you feeling. 100%. Yes.
So I want to stay on this feel good vibe and I want to get more gems out of you before we start slowing down the conversation. There's one thing that you talked about earlier, being the woman that you are with all the things that you've gone through. You are a firm believer that when you go through these trials and tribulations, they are not happening to us, but for us. So for a listener who has gone through a lot of shit like you've gone through and has that mentality of like falling into the victim mentality and wanting to get out of that and not allowing the circumstances to create their life, what would you tell them in order to move through that type of mentality?
Some of the things that I had to change in order to transform, some of those things were check your circle. Who are the people around you? Who is entertaining that lifestyle with you? Who is entertaining these toxic relationships with you? What conversations are you having? Are you constantly gossiping and drama? And every time you get on the phone with your girls or your people, you're talking about what happened and what he did and what she did and what's happening to you. And so you have to really check your circle and just start cutting people off, because if they are not good for you, more than likely you're also not good for them because you're in a broken place. 2 broken people are going to create what? A recipe for disaster. Check your circle, check the people you're around, even if that means you'll be left alone. If that means everyone around you is toxic, just as toxic as you are, because you have to take accountability for your part, like we said earlier, self-acceptance, self-awareness, then you got to be alone, because that's what happened with me. My sisters who stayed in my life, we stayed connected, we stayed united no matter what we went through. We went through some things together, all 3 of us. It was like painful, but we had to go through that. And we're sisters, we're family. So there's still stuff that will come up that we have to still go through, love each other, accept each other. Things are going to happen. You have to check, are these people healthy for me? Do I see myself growing old with these people in my life? Well, the only people I saw in my life that I saw myself growing old with were my sisters. And then I had like maybe 2 friends from childhood that I'm still very close friends with today. But out of the whole clique and I had tons of friends. I knew a lot of people, people knew me, but I had to walk away from it all because I wanted to be happy and I wanted to feel fulfilled and I wanted to have healthy relationships and do different things and be different and change. And most of the people I was around didn't. I'd say start there, because you could be this reading 2 books a day, listening to podcasts, taking courses, and then your friends that come over later or your conversations that you're having on the phone are toxic, draining, then you go right back to not feeling good. So it literally has to become a total life change. Start with really evaluating the people around you and the conversations that you're having, what you're entertaining.
That's been super beneficial for my own healing. There's a lot of people that I've known in my personal life that I really don't speak to anymore because the woman that I was 5 years ago compared to who I am today is completely different. And I just see myself going in a different direction. And I think the power of community, especially online, that has been so life-changing for me. I have met so many incredible women like yourself, sharing my story and being vulnerable and talking about these things and just surrounding myself with like-minded individuals who are on that personal development journey as well. It's cliche as fuck, but like the company that you keep says a lot about you. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And I think especially in this digital world that we're in today, the shit that you consume online, that is something else that you need to like set a firm boundary with. On my personal Instagram, I don't even go on it anymore. And I used to follow those like gossip blogs and just a lot of bullshit that was just negative all the time, like the shade room.
I used to read all the magazines.
Yeah, right. And then for me, it was taking a toll on like me personally and how I was showing up. And then when I started my podcast and I've been on this journey and I'm following all these motivational people and having these conversations like this, it has just completely changed me too. So I would also add like, yo, go through your social media and see what you're mentally feeding yourself every single day.
You need to have boundaries with social media because
Yes.
if you find yourself just scrolling, there's no way your mental health could be well. I don't care if you are Barack Obama. No one can get away from how that'll make you feel if that's what you're doing, just scrolling, and especially with what's on there, no. Do like literally like a social media cleanse, like in terms of who are you following? I said this to a group of ladies I was speaking, doing an online gig. I said, open up your Instagram app. Show me your feed and I'll tell you who you are. Because whatever you're watching, whatever you scroll through, whatever you entertain, whatever you're subscribed to, it's all going to show there. So if you go to like a dude's page and all you see is big booties and whatever, shaking ass and all that, that's because that's all he watches. You go to someone's feed and see a lot of health and wellness stuff like mine, you'll see girls working out, healthy recipes, personal development, because that's what I look at. Get ideas, content ideas. You got to be really, really careful with the social media thing. It can either give you life or bring you death.
I mean, that's a whole nother conversation that we could have for like hours. I'm going to actually use that for like when I start dating again. Like, let me see your Instagram. What are you feeding your mind? Because that's all I need to know.
Oh, be prepared. Be prepared for what you're going to see.
Yes. I love that. I love that so much. And I think, yeah, it's just important to set those boundaries. And it's hard, especially when, you know, it's people that you've known your whole life and just something that you're used to. But if you want more, you got to do more. And sometimes those type of people just can't come to the next chapter of your life. I want to know, what would you say is your superpower?
I'd say my realness. Just keep it real at all times. Sometimes I have to kind of tone it down because it could be, although I have the right intentions and I mean well, you know, sometimes it could be the person receiving is not ready to receive whatever it is I'm saying that you should change or do this or do that. But I would say my realness, even with the work that I do, it's definitely my authenticity, whether I'm connecting with teenagers or connecting with adults. I'm not trying to pretend to be somebody else. Like I love who I am. I don't feel like I have to talk a certain way or act a certain way, or, you know, you can put me in the boardroom and that same person can go down to the block and it's the same girl. It's the same woman. My tone may change a bit, but I'm still just me.
And that's definitely what attracted me to you. I just love the authenticity. And I think that's something that's very lacking in today's day and age. So to find people like you who keep it real, but also keep it classy, it's like, yeah, I like her vibes.
Yeah, exactly. And graceful.
Exactly. So the opposite of that question, what would you say is something about you that still needs a little bit of work?
Not always being quick to respond emotionally. And that comes back from me having to protect myself my whole life, for me having to fight the world my whole life, for me having to fight to have a say, fight for a position in this world. It was always a fight. And so it comes from that. It's like this defense mechanism. That's something different than, I'm not talking about speaking up for myself or voicing my opinion. I'm talking about just being sensitive. That's still like a work in progress.
And I think the self-awareness is beautiful, just to be able to see that within yourself and not beat yourself up for it. I think that's such a quick go-to for a lot of people when the inner shadow starts to come out. But for you to like honor it, be like, I see you, I know that you're here, but I got this. I think that's
Yes.
beautiful. So I talk a lot about mental health on my podcast, and I say all the time, some days I have bad bitch days or boss babe days, for those who don't like cursing. And other days are my sad girl days. So I want to know, in those sad girl days that we all have, and I'm sure you've experienced them as well, what is some ways that you're able to move through those feelings that you can share with my audience when they do experience those sad girl days?
When I started doing early in the healing stages of my life, I would ask, what is this serving me right now? It's okay to have those moments, and you should, and embrace them and own them, acknowledge them, but don't stay there. Like, am I feeling this because I'm supposed to just feel something right now? Am I feeling this because I'm creating a story or a lie in my head? Am I feeling this because I'm hanging on to something or someone that hurt me in the past? Like, why is this here? Analyze why you're feeling it. I always say, like, me being angry right now, what good is going to come out of this? And I'm quickly moved to do something. I'll get up, I'll start cleaning, I'll do something that's going to, the one thing that I always go to if I'm having like that little moment of like, whether it's just feeling discouraged or whatever, I go to YouTube or podcasts, because when you're listening to something uplifting, inspiring, empowering, even if it's just someone else's story and how they're able to overcome adversity, that can quickly shift you into a whole different vibe. Don't stay there. Take action. And whoever you talk to about it, make sure they're going to inspire you and not help to keep you there. Oh, girl, yeah, I feel you, girl. Yeah, this. No, you want to stay away from conversations that are going to help to keep you there. So you have to take action, move, do something, start cleaning, go for a walk. Like, it's just incredible the difference that makes when you're in those sad, mad girl moments. Shift the atmosphere, because you have the power to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, I had one of those days the other day, and it was one of those days that I did not want to go to the gym. Like, I was not feeling, I was like, I don't want to go. Like, I woke up shitty. I was in a bad mood, but I went. And I kept my word to myself, and I did it. And afterwards I was like, oh man, that was fucking amazing. And even though I didn't want to be here and I fucking hated being here for the entire hour and a half that I was there, when I was done, I was like, that's what I needed. I needed to allow myself to feel how I was feeling, acknowledge that it's there, but not stay in that moment. Now that I have the tools in my toolkit to be able to work through those moments that will always show up, that's how change has been able to happen for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's all about the toolkit. Fear, it comes to protect you or it comes to scare you. You can make great decisions out of fear. If you're walking down an alleyway and you notice some dude standing at the end of the alleyway with a black hoodie and just standing there staring at you or walking towards you, well, what's the first thing you're going to do? Fear kicks in. It's going to quickly tell you what to do. Turn around, run, or somehow avoid this person or don't approach this person. Fear comes for different reasons. And when you don't need it, thank it. Thank you. You're trying to get me not to take or to see the danger in taking on this project, or don't start the business because this is going to happen and that's going to happen and you're not going to make money and everybody else is doing it. Why would you do it? But you know what, Fear? I thank you. I acknowledge you, but I don't need you right now. I'll let you know when I need you.
Right. I'll holler at you when I'm ready.
When I'm walking down the alleyway and I see the dude, whatever, I'll need you,
I love that so much. So what has been one of the hardest lessons that you have learned as an adult?
Not paying attention to the red flags, because they are always there. I don't care what anyone says. You'll hear the odd story where, oh my God, she was a perfect human being. Everything was so perfect. And out of the blue, 10 years in, 5 years in, right? That's very rare. The red flags are always there. And when you don't pay attention to those red flags, you will have to pay attention one day. That's a lesson for me. Like from the beginning, whether it's a friendship, a partnership, a work partnership, a business partnership, an intimate relationship, whatever is there in the beginning, whoever that person, they say, as cliche as it sounds, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Yeah, believe them. You don't have the power to change them, as women often think we do. Your beautiful looks and body and whatever else you have to offer is not going to change them. You pay attention to the red signs, period. No buts, no excuses, period.
Where were you in 2020 when I needed you?
Where was I in 2021 when I needed me?
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. And that's something that I've also learned on my own journey. Like I said before, when I start dating, the first red flag, I don't give a fuck, I'm out. Because I was that type of girl who would like, oh, the benefit of the doubt. Oh, I could change him. No, fuck that. Not doing it no more.
Yeah.
I'm not Captain Save-A-Ho anymore. I'm not doing it. Nope.
Nobody but my kids.
That's it. My daughter and myself. That's it. You are on the Watch Us Thrive podcast. So I want to know, what is your definition of thriving?
Living a passion-fueled life. If you are not somewhat tapped into your passions, a passion, project, a business, hobby, then it really calls for a unfulfilled life. And even if that means just serving people, that could be customer care, you have to be tapped into a passion because you don't want to live a passionless life. That for me is thriving. Thriving is doing what you are passionate about, and it doesn't always mean pay. It doesn't always mean you're going to get paid to do it.
That's one of the best answers I've gotten on this show. Thank you so much. I love that. Okay, so go back to baby Elizabeth. Give her a big hug. If there is one piece of advice you would tell her being the woman that you are today, what would that be?
I would say it's all going to make sense one day. It's just for a short period of time. They're going to use us to change the world, to change the lives of so many women and girls across the globe. You're going to help so many people. Just keep fighting through. It's okay. It's not the end. This isn't your destiny. I would have wished even someone would have said that to me.
I love that. Okay, final question. What is an affirmation or a mantra that you practice daily and why?
I would say the one that you mentioned in the beginning. My story didn't happen to me. It happened for me. Even when things happen, I'm like, okay, this is happening for me. What's the lesson here? What am I supposed to get out of this? How can I use this to serve the world? Sometimes the lesson's for me. Sometimes it's for people that I'm helping. Sometimes it's for a stranger. So I would say your story is not happening to you. It's happening for you. Well, we think of the world's greatest legends, Maya Angelou or Malcolm X or Martin Luther King, the obvious ones. They found their purpose through their pain. They discovered their message through their mess. Your pain is the birthing place of your purpose.
I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. There is always a message in the mess. And I know that I survived and you survived and we survived for a reason. And we're having this conversation in order to show the message in the mess. So with that being said, Elizabeth, I love this conversation so much. I'm so glad that we connected. And I know my audience is going to want to know more about you and learn more about you and follow you. So please talk about your book that's out. What are you working on? How can they follow you? Plug that all in for my audience.
Yeah, so I currently I have a couple things going on. I do have a couple courses. I have a forgiveness course. I've got a personal transformation course. I have actually a freebie, which I'll send you the link to that. It's How to Discover Your One Thing Masterclass. Finding me on platforms would be just my name, Elizabeth Correia, whether it's my website, elizabethcorreia.com. My Instagram and Facebook recently, a couple months ago, got hacked. I'm on there as Elizabeth Correia Miss. Instagram, it's MS Elizabeth Correia. That's Correia. LinkedIn, Elizabeth Correia, TikTok. So most platforms, I'm there as Elizabeth Correia. My bio in my Instagram, if you click that link, it actually has all the links to courses, the book, whether it's the Kindle ebook version on Amazon or a hard copy, which they can order through my website. It's all there.
I'm so glad that we connected. I cannot wait to read your book. I'm going to leave all of your information in the episode show notes. Thank you again for just sharing your story and the work that you're doing. It's so impactful. It's so needed. And I just cannot wait to see what the future holds for you. I know you're going to continue creating change and doing the damn thing for so many people. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Leanne. Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.